I have always been fascinated with the Splatoon franchise. There's something about it that's just creepy to me. I mean, the fact that humans are now extinct, sea creatures have now become the apex species of the entire planet and now walk on land. But besides those obvious factors, the series has some creepy lore tied to it, some things that actually give me an uneasy feeling. So today, I found myself on a mission to search the internet and find every bit of creepy lore that's tied to the Splatoon franchise. Perhaps there's a good chance that you know a lot of these stories, or maybe there's a good chance that you haven't heard of any of them. But I want you to sit back and listen to some of the creepiest lore and also creepiest moments caught on camera in the entire Splatoon series. This first one has been around since the very beginning of the franchise, with Splatoon 1, and it's continued in the future games including Splatoon 2 and its Octo expansion. It's a sound that's so freaky and so scary it had the entire internet talking for months and even years, and people trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Before you enter a boss fight in Splatoon 1, if you stop and listen to the noises in the background, you'll hear this. These skin-crawling sounds continue to play on repeat over and over and over again as you sit and listen, and a lot of internet theories have been going around as to what this could possibly be. One theory is that the Octarians were suffering, that the Inklings were taking their only power supply, being the Zapfish, which is leaving them in destruction, pain, and agony down there. Another very scary theory that I've seen online is the fact that the Octarians reside underground after losing the Great Turf War, and they take refuge in leftover domes that were placed underground. We'd find out in Splatoon 3 that these leftover domes are actually last resort nuclear fallout shelters for the humans. So there's a theory that what if the Octarians are actually torturing still surviving humans in these domes, that they actually were still alive in some of these fallout shelters and the Octarians are slowly killing them off so they can now inhabit those shelters themselves. So are those skin crawling screams that we're hearing Octarians? Are they humans that are still alive? When asked about this, Splatoon director Yosuke Amano stated this is the first he's heard about this, and he actually wanted to go explore and listen to this for himself because he didn't know. All he could tell us was that at the time they were very close to completing the game and boss battles were one of the last parts to add to the game. So he would design roles for the other developers to finish those boss rooms on their own time, so it's likely that some developer put this in as an elaborate joke. Elaborate joke or not, this is still one of the creepiest moments in the entire series. Returning back to Splatoon 1 and shooting over to the map of Museum del Fancino, there's another very creepy secret here. Now this one only plays at night, which is during the Splatfest, so clearly we won't be able to do this anymore. So we're gonna have to reference a video posted by Horsefeathers on YouTube. Horsefeathers was able to get a hack for the game that actually placed it at night as if a Splatfest was happening. He jumps into Recon and visits the two statues on the map, both of them being catty-corner of each other on each sides of the map. Each statue has a distinct laugh that it will actually giggle softly depending on how far away you are from the statue, the louder that giggle will be. Like I said, this phenomenon only happens at night, and it doesn't seem to be any laugh but children laughs, as if they're playing, but almost in like a mischievous way as well. Now, Horsefeathers posts more information on how often this plays and how you can get this to sound perfect if you're trying to do this on a hacked Wii U, but something else that he references is the sound of one of the laughs is actually a direct reference to Galactos' boss battle from Skyward Sword. Take a listen. So what are these sounds from, and why are they being played, and only specifically at night during the Splatfest mode? Odds are a lot of people think this could just simply be another mischievous trick that one of the devs is playing that planted this here without it being known, or is it something a lot darker? Is the game haunted? Is it cursed? Are the souls of these statues coming to haunt the players? Well, some players have theories of their own. One theory I've seen going around was these statues were old war vets that fought in the Great Turf War, and now they see the Inklings and Octolings having fun, so they laugh and giggle with glee. So are they simply teasing, or could it be something more sinister? Now this one isn't necessarily creepy, but more just disturbing. Of course, every time you used to boot up your Wii U, you were forced to listen to this entire stage news entrance by Callie and Marie, and every time they introduce a stage, there's a line of quotes that they could say for each stage. Now on one of those stages, being Salt Spray Rig, you could get dialogue from Callie and Marie that states this. Callie might say, "Black. The salt spray here really gets in my eyes," and then Marie will actually respond saying, "You know, salted squid is a delicacy in some places." Now you might be wondering, with humans extinct, why would she be talking about squids eating other salted squids? That doesn't really make sense. Well, technically it does, because, well, squids are actually cannibalistic in nature. They will readily eat another squid, and they normally do this if the other squid is injured, weak, or if they need to reduce the competition. So according to this, technically, squids still eat each other, at least if some are weak. Are there like hospitals for squids where the Inklings can eat each other, and the same for the Octolings? Like imagine the local hospital technically being a restaurant for Inklings. And obviously this is a whole completely different time period. So what does Marie mean that it's a delicacy in some places? What places exactly are eating Inklings or squids still? Is there like a tribe somewhere far off in a distant land, or maybe some other neighboring country or something where squids are still eating each other? Is there an evil squid out there eating weaker squids? Who knows? We now move on to Splatoon 2, and on the stage, Inkblot Academy, we have something really spooky. In one of the phone booths, you can actually peek through the glass, and using a sniper scope, you're able to zoom in really closely to see what looks to be some type of creepy ghost face. It's very strange because as we're looking at it, it will often just disappear, and then after a little while, reappear in the same spot. Now, it's been pretty much debunked that this is a lighting situation where the clouds go overhead and that's what's causing it to disappear. But something about it is just very unsettling to me. This reminds me a lot of that ghost figure that appears at the end of one of the mansion levels in Mario 3D Land, and also kind of eerily reminiscent of the Hell Valley Sky trees from Mario Galaxy 2, if you remember that. Believe it or not, in one of the off-the-hook news segments in Splatoon 2, Pearl states that she swears she's seen one of the statues in Inkblot Academy's eyes actually glow at night. So something's clearly going on with these statues in the Splatoon universe. Are these statues haunted or possibly containing the soul of a past Inkling? I do want to return back to Inkblot in a second, but I want to move on to Splatoon 3 for our third and final creepy statue sighting. In the stage Umami Ruins, at night you can actually see one of these statues start moving in one of its cases. Not only that, but its eyes will start to glow green and it will start to emit a green aura around it as it slowly spins around and looks at you. It even appears to slowly move a little bit. Now it's unclear if it's actually moving in the player's direction or it's simply just walking towards the right here. This is probably a direct reference to the statues in the museum in Splatoon 1, or maybe even the statues that Pearl's seen their eyes glowing in the Inkblot Academy in Splatoon 2. But either way, it looks like we do have some sort of creepiness going on with the statues and something is inhabiting them. Now this also seems to be a mummified version of an Inkling or Octoling, so that also could be the case of it being some type of mummified creature that's come to life. But I want to jump back to Inkblot and talk about something else that's very creepy that happens in the same area. In the same phone booth that we saw the face, there's a phone, and the phone actually rings occasionally at night. Now obviously this happens at Splatfest times, but randomly, and it could be either one of the two telephones on each side of the map. But the message that comes through is always the same distorted, crackly message that we really can't understand what it is being said or who's saying it. Is it an Inkling's voice or an Octoling? Is it a call for help? Is it some type of distress call for us to answer that we just won't pick up? Whatever it is, clearly someone's calling. Someone's wanting us to pick up. It could be somebody in distress. From the Octo expansion, we learn of some really dark, creepy things going on down in the deep sea metro. Of course, we have to dive into that separately later on in this video, but it does make me wonder if there's a connection there. Now, something interesting about these telephone sounds is Horse Feathers on YouTube also reported on these weird sounds coming from these squid beacons that you can place. Now, after some extensive research and code pooling, he was able to come to the conclusion that the sounds from the telephone are the exact same coming out of the squid beacon. Now this really makes me wonder, is some lost Inkling or Octoling trying to get through on a transmission wave that's hitting the telephones and even the squid beacons? It does make me wonder if someone's in extreme distress. Now the ghost face that we can barely make out in this area isn't the only one that we've seen in the Splatoon series. In Splatoon 3, we get to return to Flounder Heights, and if you look up at one of the apartment doors, you can see a creepy ghost face once again. It looks very similar to the one that we've seen at Inkblot, just blown up to be a lot bigger and more defined eyes and nose holes. I then set out to find this for myself, but I couldn't see a thing. The face was nowhere to exist on my screen. After some quick research, I found out that as of the 6.0 chill season of 2023, this has been removed from the game. To me, this sounds like another trick and Easter egg hidden by one of the devs, and then Nintendo found out about this and quickly removed it. What's also creepy is the same thing happens in Splatoon 1 in a nearby window, but in my opinion, it looks 10 times creepier. It has more of a defined face, with a clearly visible mouth, nose, eyes, and seemingly something coming out of its head like horns. Someone on the dev team truly wants to make a horror game out of the Splatoon franchise. Or are they actually appearing in the code by accident? Either way, this is simply not a coincidence or a lighting issue in the game causing this. The Inklings might be experiencing some weird phenomenon above world, but it's the underground that actually takes a twisted dark turn where the Octolings are suffering the most. With the ongoing Octoling and Octarian battle with the Inklings and having to survive underground, there is also a new danger that would pose a threat to not just the Octarians and the Octolings, but to the entire marine life on Earth now. Now, I don't really need to dive into super deep lore right now, there's tons of videos for that, but this all comes from the Professor, which is one of the last humans that we know about from Earth before the Great Disaster. He actually was the owner of Judd the Cat, and even made an incubator for him to stay alive well after the apocalypse, and when he awakened, he would also be greeted by a clone of himself, being Lil Judd, that the Professor gave him. But the Professor created one last thing before the apocalypse, one last thing that would help to carry on the human civilization and knowledge that the humans possessed. This would be passed down to the next intelligent life. This creation would be known as Tartar the Telephone. Well, Tartar had other plans. While researching the marine life that's taken over the globe as the new apex species, he deemed them unworthy of the knowledge of humanity, and have already saw them on the same path as the humans, once again starting wars and having conflict with each other. So his solution is to make a brand new race, a sanitized race that's all completely controlled by him. And in order to do this, yeah, he blends up his victims. Not just any victims, he's grinded up a total of 10,007 different Octolings in this machine. Now, there is a good chance that a lot of these weren't just Octolings, but also Octarians as well. There's even a factory where you can see him use his grinded up green paste in order to form his new sanitized soldiers. In fact, we don't know how long Commander Tartar has been down here grinding up Octarians and Octolings. It had to be a long time after all, with over 10,000 souls being grinded up for his master plan. What if since Splatoon 1, those sounds that we've been hearing in the boss rooms were just this, the cries for help, the screams of pain and agony from the Octolings being tortured down here? Or what if that ringing phone from the Inkblot Art Academy is actually an octoling crying for help, trying to call someone above ground? Anyone, any inkling could choose to answer this phone, but no one ever answers. Now, the Octolings should be very thankful that the developers actually didn't go with the beta images for Commander Tartar, because they were way scarier than what we actually got. Well, this one isn't necessarily what I meant. Yes, there was a form where Commander Tartar actually had 2 long robotic legs. There was also one where he had more sanitization corruption all over him and 1 red glowing eye in the center. But the next couple of concepts take a wild turn. In this concept, it looks like Commander Tartar is not a telephone, but instead a human brain with a giant eyeball. He seems to be piloting a giant blender machine very similar to the one that comes out of the mouth of the giant NILS statue. And man, it's just creepy thinking that we could be fighting against a human brain. Is this brain sentient from the human that it comes from? Like, is his soul residing in the brain? Would this actually technically be the first human in the Splatoon series? Could this have even been the professor's brain gone rogue? Regardless, I really hope they revisit this idea in a future game like Splatoon Raiders, because as it is very creepy and unsettling, I think it's a really cool and unique idea. We also have this version, which seems to be some giant robo squid creature made out of an IV bag, and you can see tons of these IV bags surrounding around him, some green and some purple. Now, I'm not sure if some of those are Inklings and Octolings being green and purple respectively, but you can also see Octarians being tortured and layered around the base of the IV bag, and inside the bag still looks like it has that human brain, but it's divided into 2 colored quadrants, 1 pink and 1 blue. And the last thing we have is some magazine art titled Splatoon Octo, and it shows a giant robotic screen with an Octo face on it. I'd be willing to bet with Tartar being a rogue AI, he wasn't always going to be a telephone. Maybe at one point in time he was going to be a rogue evil supercomputer or a giant television screen of some sort. Regardless of how he turned out looking, he still became one of the most evil creatures to date in a Nintendo game. Chopping up over 10,000 sentient beings is just pure evil. But I want to continue on with the Octolings, because this one isn't super creepy, but a little disturbing just to think about. Now, we know that there's 2 different groups of octopi that make up the Octarian forces. There's the Octolings and the Octarians. Now, we know when Inklings and Octolings die in battle, they splat, and their soul leaves their body. Now, I'm not sure if this is only a thing in the turf battles that the Inklings and Octolings hold, because like in the Great Turf War, we know there were many casualties. So perhaps only under certain stipulations do their souls return to their bodies. I mean, this is a theory for an entire video in and of itself. But I want to focus more on the Octolings and Octarians here, because this doesn't happen with the Octarians. If you shoot an Octoling and kill it, its soul will return to a spawn beacon if there's one present. But if you shoot an Octarian, the Octarian just dies with no soul. Now, one of the only few exceptions to this rule is the Octo Samurai boss from Splatoon 2. He's the only one that actually has an active soul that returns into its respawn beacon. But for the rest of the Octarians, and it doesn't really matter what type, whether it be sanitized or mammal infused, they seem to just die with no soul present. So what are these creatures exactly, and what differentiates them from Octolings for them to not have souls, but the Octolings to have souls? Well, are they some type of eldritch horror that's created in a lab by DJ Octavio and other forces? Or is it something else? Well, we might have a clue as to what's going on here. Here we have an art book that was released from Nintendo, and on one of the pages it shows us the difference between the Octarians and the Octolings. It reads, "Growth cycle of the Octarian. Octarians are created by cutting off a tentacle from a host and have no reproductive capability of their own. High-class Octarians tend to grow more limbs and their intelligence increases proportionally. As a species, they are very diligent and are good at following orders without complaint." So this could give us one of 2 possible explanations of what's going on here. Some Octarians don't further evolve to become Octolings. Does this mean that they're not granted a soul until they reach humanoid form? Are they just flesh and suction cups with eyes? Perhaps they're still in an animal state instead of a humanoid one, just a slightly smarter animal state. But how does evolving more grant them a soul? who gives them a soul? Is there some type of marine life deity for the Inklings and Octolings? Another theory I've seen online is that Octarians grow from missing limbs of Octolings. If an Octoling's limb or tentacle is cut or sliced, an Octarian will form in its place, which has no soul since it's a piece of its host, the Octoling. This then makes me question, how are there so many Octarians? Are there Octolings just being tortured, getting their limbs cut off, and their tentacles severed over and over again? Is DJ Octavio like an enslaving dictator that's causing this to happen? Then this makes me question the Inklings, because octopuses can regenerate their limbs, but so can squids. So why is there not a form of Octarian for the Inkling, like an Inklarian or something? A lesser life form that's not as humanoid. A life form without a soul. Well, that's a question for another day. Continuing on with Octarians, there's one boss Octarian that we need to talk about, and that is the Octostomp. He's a pretty unique boss because he's the only one to return a total of 3 times in the series. Of course, not counting the head of the Octos, DJ Octavio. Agent 3 defeats him in the campaign of Splatoon 1, but then a sanitized remix version of him returns in the Octo expansion, created by Commander Tartar. Now there is a good chance that this isn't the same character from the first game. Captain Cuttlefish does just say that it's a Octostomp, so there's a good chance that maybe there's multiple of them that's been made. But what if it's not? What if it's the same one that's been sanitized and repurposed in the Octo expansion? Agent 8 defeats it in a similar manner, but it returns a 3rd time in Splatoon 3. Fry, one of the members from Deep Cut, actually summons a giant Octostomp. However, this time it's just its corpse. It has an empty hollow mouth and eye holes with no life found inside. But it's now been entirely repurposed and controlled by Fry and her ink eels. It's kind of creepy to think about. It's almost as if it's a giant crab shell that doesn't contain the life form anymore. In fact, it's even been turned into a respawn beacon for Fry's soul to return to. I don't know, something about this just was a little unsettling the first time I saw this boss return for a 3rd time, but this time as an empty husk of itself. At the very end of the fight, Fry detonates it once again, so who's to say it's not to return for a 4th time? In Splatoon 2 and 3, both the Inklings and Octolings had to undergo yet again another threat. The Salmonid would occasionally attack the outer skirts of the mainland for the Inklings and Octolings. They were hired to farm golden eggs from the Salmonid, which we learn was a secret ploy from Mr. Grizz, an evil bear bound to bring back the return of mammals. But doing this meant killing off hundreds of thousands of Salmonid in the process. However, at the end of Splatoon 3, the Salmonid are desperate, and they have to do whatever they can in order to save their race and to take out the Inklings and Octolings. So they take to the land and start invading the hometowns of the Inklings and Octolings, the inner cities, and everything about this just screams our last hope. They're doing everything they can to keep their bloodline alive, and they're taking the war to the Inklings and Octolings now. And of course, now we know the Salmonid aren't the villains, it's Mr. Grizz, but unfortunately, too many lives have been lost, it's just too late now. So the last option they have is to bring out the King Salmonid, and when they're revealed, they let out a blood-curdling scream, one that's just creepy to the core every time I hear it. And all 3 of them each have their own distinct scream. These screams just feel like a last resort battle cry. They're extremely loud and they're extremely obnoxious, yet extremely scary. Their entire race is being killed off, and also for the wrong reasons that the Inklings and Octolings don't even know. They've desperately run out of options, and even though we took out Mr. Grizz and found out the truth, it doesn't seem to stop the Salmonid from coming now. The war has started, and there has to be a clear winner. And I wouldn't be surprised to find out that in the next game, the Salmonid have gone completely extinct now. It's actually kind of sad and eerie when you think about it. One big mystery in Splatoon 3 is the giant upside-down Eiffel Tower. For the Eiffel Tower to get upside down and planted well into the earth, there had to be some type of monstrous monsoon that took place. Well, we know thanks to the war that was going on with the humans in the last days, a nuclear warhead struck Antarctica, which caused an extreme rapid rate of flooding around the globe. Well, a flood also happened once the Inklings and Octolings emerged into the apex species, where we can then see the Eiffel Tower flipped upside down. Now, like I just said, for the Eiffel Tower to be flipped upside down, there'd had to be some massive, and I mean massive waves just to pick the thing up, flip it around, and then land it back into the ground. The Eiffel Tower stands at around 1,063 feet, or around 330 meters. Now, with the information that we have so far, it's impossible to know how everyone died. I mean, it could have been due to war itself, to the flooding, whatever it may be. It's likely that the flooding is what finished off most of humanity. What you're looking at right here is 330 meters of water filling the globe. This obviously wouldn't be enough to completely take out a civilization. Now, the nuclear warheads, like I said, could have been the cause for most of the deaths, but I'm guessing the water was way above 330 meters, especially to flip the Eiffel Tower upside down. In fact, we don't even know where the Eiffel Tower landed. We can't just say that this is now modern day Paris or what it would be. The Eiffel Tower could have been sucked up and dropped off in a completely different location. So with waters high enough to take out an entire civilization, I'm saying the waters were around 6,500 meters or higher, which would take you to the highest elevation with Mount Everest in Nepal. So not only did humans have to survive nuclear fallout, but they also had to survive at great heights, and maybe even some as high as Mount Everest itself, which making that journey probably wouldn't even be possible for most. I mean, that's 8,848 meters to the peak. And with the Inklings and Octolings having to suffer this same problem with another great flood, it's not hard to assume that hundreds of thousands of Inklings and Octolings lost their lives that day. But clearly, not every human suffered this fate, which leads me to my next topic. Now, this story is probably the most tragic of them all. The underground bunker of Alterna would be one of the last refuges of the world, at least the only one that we know of so far. Without getting too deep into this story and just covering it briefly, the people here were able to create a good life down here. It may not have been the perfect life, and it was still a life of simulation. Nothing was real. The screens portrayed a beautiful daytime sky with clouds, sun, and birds chirping, trees nearby. But it was all fake, and the people knew it. As the years went on and a younger generation took the mantle, they wanted nothing more than to finally leave this place and get back to the outside world. Some of the people then tried to take a rocket to escape, but one of the boosters overloaded, which caused an explosion with a terrible chain reaction that rained down debris on the rest of the civilization, killing everyone down below. The last of humanity dying off because of their own greed is just a sad, unfortunate tale. Which still makes me wonder if some of those creepy boss room sounds that we hear are some of the lost souls of the humans. In fact, some of those boss room sounds do return in Splatoon 3, so it might not just be the Octos being tortured from Commander Tartar, because all that's over by the time of this game. And even before entering the final phase at the top of the rocket, you can hear some eerie sounds in the background which almost sounds like humans speaking, also accompanied with very eerie music. Now, this could just be a recording for the launch that they were planned to have, or it could be something a lot spookier. But man, in this game's lore, so many Inklings, so many Octolings, and so many humans, shoot, so many Salmonid have lost their lives due to so much conflict. And of course, tons of horrible environmental disasters. But I still wonder, if we were able to finally find Alterna, could there be a chance that humans survived somewhere else? Are there any other humans in space that did make it? Is there some secret facility out there that we just haven't uncovered yet? So far, we've only really stayed in one quadrant of the world with one group of Inklings and Octolings in this series, so I'm curious to see if we can expand later on in Splatoon 4 and to see where else they take this series. Perhaps there still is a human out there somewhere, patiently waiting for us to discover them or for them to discover us. But on a slightly better note, things could have been way worse for the Inklings and Octolings in this story. At the very end of Splatoon 2's Octo expansion with your battle against Tartar and the NILS statue, if you actually lose the fight, you will get an alternate ending that shows you the bad ending of what happens if you fail. The statue fires the laser and covers the entirety of Inkopolis in sanitization goo before completely wiping out the entire city, killing off every single marine life in the process. What makes it even worse is that weird green sanitization goo is just chopped up and blended up pieces of Octolings. So blasting Inkopolis with Octoling goo is just tragic. You can also see the billboards being taken over by the Kamabo Co., which is the shadowy corporation behind the Deep Sea Metro in the first place. This corporation was created and recruited by Commander Tartar to help gather up the 10,000 plus Octolings for slaughter. And a similar yet a bit creepier thing could have happened in Splatoon 3. If Mr. Grizz wins with his rocket in space, he will rain down chemicals over the entirety of the globe, turning everybody and everything into mammals. At least everyone would still be alive, but they'd all be creepy looking fuzzball zombies instead. So yes, the new marine apex species of the world may have had it tough throughout their adventures, but it could have meant an end to their entire civilization on multiple accounts. The very last page of the Splatoon 3 Sunken Scrolls reveals something very odd. It shows off a new NPC that we have in the game called the Marigold, and there's about 3 of them that we can see around Splatsville, and there's actually a 4th one that we can hear talking behind the gate at Grizzco. Now on paper, they just seem to be simple employees that work around the different vendors of Splatsville, but this last scroll might say otherwise. The scroll shows off 3 marigolds, and they all have different alias names they go by, along with what I assume to be addresses for where they live with some of the numbers blocked off. But strange enough, the marigold that we see do not match any of the marigold that we see around Splatsville. And it's pretty odd how their names, information, and pictures are all crossed out with marker, as if they've been eliminated or hunted down by a bounty hunter or something. Now I have seen tons of theories of people suggesting they could be some type of undercover operative group that's secretly working around Splatsville to get the jump on the Inklings and Octolings for some reason. I've seen theories also suggest that this is all the same person that's been cloned, and that's why they all look pretty much identical. I mean, even Nintendo themselves tweeted out, "Hold on, we've noticed or surveyed, if you will, a similarity between the recon guide and the merchant at the Crab and Go. Pretty sure we've surveyed her in other spots too. Are they one and the same? We will have to order a lot more sandwiches to get to the bottom of this." So is Nintendo setting up something with a new villain in the next Splatoon game? Are the Marigold evil? And why are they being hunted down and apparently killed off? Is there something more creepy and sinister about the Marigold that we just don't know yet? Well, I'm sure time will tell. Splatoon 3's Side Order DLC also holds some pretty creepy secrets as well, which also includes its boss rooms. All of the boss rooms have strange noises, but this time rather coming from the background and from the depths of the room itself, it actually comes from the bosses. One of the creepiest is the asynchronous rondo. Since this is a constructed digital world from Marina's mind, the asynchronous rondo has the files to the music that Pearl Marina has sung in the past, including the song Ebb and Flow. And the machine, in broken and somber language, actually sings this song, but it sounds as if it's in torment, as if it's stuck in this digital world and it wants to be set free and be able to sing the songs that the Inklings and Octolings sing, be a part of the main crew, but instead it's just a machine, it's code trapped in this world. Take a listen. But towards the end of the main chorus, it starts to get a bit chaotic and even creepier. I don't know about you, but whenever I listen to this audio, the hairs on my arms stand up and I begin to get goosebumps. The sounds that this machine emits is just so terrifying. Now the pinging Martial also sings, but this one actually sings Fly Octo Fly. This one too might be kind of creepy, but nothing compared to the asynchronous rondo in my opinion. It's just spine chilling. Yet, it's also kind of sad. Almost like this machine knows that it's just trapped on this endless cycle to be repeated, built up and destroyed over and over again, and it can't be free. All it can do is sing the one song that it knows, Ebb and Flow. But sticking with side order for one more fact, did you know that the snow that falls in the lobby isn't even snow? The entire world of Side Order is a generated program ran by Marina. The whole point of this program is to undo the sanitization mind wiping that Commander Tartar has done on the Octolings. This would be a process of reconstructing memories and placing them back into the Octolings. But due to an unknown virus in the program, it started to go haywire, where even the sea cucumber phones would be hacked, literally sucking the life force, soul, and essence out of the Inklings and Octolings that look at their phones. The only way to return their consciousness is for Agent 8 to take their kit to the top of the Spire of Order. Once at the top, it's Agent 8's job to take out Order, the virus of the program. Now, sucking the soul and trapping its consciousness into a digital world is already dark enough, but what is up with the snow that's falling? According to Nintendo, the Spire of Order serves as a factory where memories are produced, grayscale, and eventually incinerated. The snow-like substance falling into the Order sector is incinerated ash from the tower. It looks beautiful, but in actuality, it's quite scary. The perceived snow that we see in the lobby is actually the burnt incinerated ashes from memories of these trapped Inklings and Octolings. As they're patiently waiting for their palettes to be completed and set free of this digital world, their memories are constantly being produced, grayscaled, and then incinerated to fall to the ground as snow. Even a digital world can be as scary as the real one. I guess the lesson of the day is don't stick your head in your phone all day. Now these last batch of facts are just some random theories and information that I found on the internet that I thought was pretty interesting. During the Splatfest setup for Splatoon 3, you'll occasionally come across this porta potty, and struggling Inkling or Octoling sounds can be heard coming from the inside. Hopefully this is nothing more than just a painful bathroom section, or it could be worse. They could have ran out of toilet paper. Now that is definitely scary. Darting back over to the underground facility of Alterna, the scientists were able to find one of the biggest discoveries in history, which was the liquid crystal creation from the bodily fluids of squids. In short, these crystals were used to essentially read the minds of the humans and create false realities for them. For instance, giving them the illusion that they would be outside, showing clouds and a sky, a sun, and trees around them. But shortly after the destruction of Alterna and the return of Mr. Grizz, a bear aboard the Ark Polaris before crashing back down to Earth, Mr. Grizz was able to mix these crystals with his own fur. He was a highly intelligent bear, to put it frankly. This combination of liquid crystals in his own fur would create a creepy concoction known as fuzzy ooze. Now, if any non-mammal comes into contact with this, they instantly turn into a big furry freak and are immobile. But perhaps what's even creepier is the fuzzy ooze also has a heartbeat. And it's not just one glob of fuzzy ooze, they all have a conjoined, simultaneously pounding heartbeat. This is extremely freaky. Why does the fuzzy ooze have a heartbeat? It's just liquid crystals and fur. How is it like borderline alive? This to me signifies that the fuzzy ooze is some sort of biohazardous, semi-sentient organism. So is the fuzzy ooze living in some capacity? I mean, the liquid crystals that it's comprised of is actually based off of the bodily fluids from squids. So is there some marine life sentience in there? Whatever it is, the fact that every glob of fuzzy ooze pulsates in a rhythmic pattern together just creeps me out. Almost if there's some sort of hive mind working where they're all connected. Could they be tied to Mr. Grizz and actually mimicking his own heartbeat since it's actually connected from his own fur? The scientists knew that the crystals could read minds, but we never knew what would happen if you combine the crystals with a living organism, like a bear. So perhaps all the globs of fuzzy ooze is actually just mimicking the pulsating heartbeat from Mr. Grizz, which is just super creepy. One of the scarier things about the Inklings and Octolings is they cannot come in contact with water, it seems, because whenever they fall into at least big bodies of water, they die immediately. After all, this is why the Great Turf War and the Rising Tide was so important, the battle to see who gets to take over the land and who has to go underground, since there's nowhere else to live since everything else was surrounded by water. But the age-old question has always been, what's the extent to this? I mean, is it all water? Can Inklings and Octolings drink anything? Can they take showers? Like, can they even wash their hands? Could you imagine constantly being in fear of a rainy day and you don't have your umbrella on you, where you could die at a moment's notice if a car is driving by and runs over a puddle of water that's left from a rainy day before and it hits you? You could die. Now, we've heard some of the idols before talk about it. For instance, Pearl has brought up many times for everyone to stay hydrated, and Marina would always tell her that the water is lethal. And we know that they actually have drinks, but what are their drinks comprised of? I mean, if that's the case and there's absolutely no water in them, that only leaves like pure substances like oil, methanol, or straight alcohol. But there often seems to be indications that fresh water is what's fine for them, but salt water from the ocean is what's deadly, because Marina has talked about New Albacore Hotel, which has a hot spot. Also from Splatoon 1, Callie talks about taking showers, and Marie talks about how popular water slides are and how she enjoys them. I mean, for crying out loud, why would they design turf war maps with water everywhere? Yes, there's respawn beacons and it could save them, but still, it just seems pretty strange. Like, why are there even hotels with pools everywhere if the Inklings and Octolings can't use them? Well, I've seen some theories out there, like I said, where it's the salt water that actually does the damage to them, or that there's something in the oceanic waters, potentially from the human war, like toxins or acidity, which actually poisons the Inklings once they touch it. But we've also seen various rooms inside facilities with large bodies of water in them. Now, I am unsure if these bodies of water are still salt water being poured in from the outside, or are they fresh water now? This does make me wonder if the upcoming spin-off, Splatoon Raiders, is going to dive deeper into this mechanic, considering the fact that the crew is stranded on an island in the middle of the ocean, and in any instance they could fall off of their boat raft into the water and die instantly. It does raise some questions. But if it is in fact true that Inklings and Octolings can't even come into contact with water, like touch it or drink it, I think that's pretty insane. And also pretty scary for them, where any day could be their last. The final thing I want to talk about today is DJ Octavio, the leader of the Octarian army. He too once had a humanoid form, like Captain Cuttlefish, but due to a severe injury during the war, according to Nintendo Dream magazine, he's now unable to transform back into his humanoid version. Now, this is probably the giant green scar that we can see on the back of one of his tentacles. Now, DJ Octavio isn't inherently a bad guy. I mean, he's literally just a DJ and the one trying to keep the Octarians and Octolings alive all these years. Now, online rumors and theories has it that he can actually transform back into his humanoid form, but it would cause him to rapidly approach death. If that's the case, that's even more sad for him. The fact that he's cursed forever to be in this form, and I do wonder if they're ever going to give us a glimpse of his humanoid form again. We do know for the first time ever, DJ Octavio has teamed up with the Inklings to help take out Mr. Grizz, and it does make me wonder if he's going to have another major event where he sacrifices his life for the entire planet or something. A moment where he needs to transform one final time and says his last goodbye to Captain Cuttlefish would be a bittersweet moment for sure. But regardless, it's very sad that he can't return to his normal self. The series of Splatoon has some genuinely very scary moments, some that I can't believe Nintendo even got away with. From the mysterious creepy sounds in the depths, to the glowing eyes and creepy giggles of statues at night, and to the dark disturbing lore of the Inklings and Octolings, this world is riddled with creepy moments and mysteries that are still unresolved. But now I leave the detective work up to you guys. Is there anything that I missed in today's creepy video? Are there other creepy stories that's been circling the web and also the Splatoon community? Are there still strange mysteries out there for us to resolve? With a brand new game on the horizon, I'm sure things are going to get even crazier in 2026. So with that, I thank you for watching and keep your eyes peeled.